Hi, Al Lipper here. Good to see you today. Talking to you from our ranch, enjoying a beautiful sunset. Thought I'd share it with you. Anyway, I help entrepreneurs, especially those who not only want to make more money, but also want to get some of their time back so they're not so busy. And often so they can use that time on things that matter more to them in their lives. And in particular, that's very often family for the folks who I work with. So today we're going to talk about a strategy for not only making more money in your business, but simplifying your business, reducing your stress level, because that's so important. You know, as entrepreneurs, I think we have so many plates spinning in the air at one time that it's really easy to just get totally overwhelmed. And when we're overwhelmed, we don't see clearly. When we're overwhelmed, we're not happy. And we also, not only do we not function best, but then when we do have time off, we're so distracted by all those things that we didn't get done. So this technique, hopefully, or this strategy really, it's going to help you understand what matters more in your business, what matters less, so that you can focus on the things that matter more, let go of the things that matter less, and hopefully get back more time and make more money in the process. Okay, so today we're going to talk about metrics, and this is especially relevant for the online part of your business. So often we have these involved campaigns, whether it's people are opting in and then they're getting an email sequence and then they're hopefully buying a product, or maybe they're registering for a webinar and then they go through the webinar and then they buy something and then we try to upsell something else or something like that. Or maybe you're driving them to outbound calls, or whatever it is, whatever your funnels are, your processes are. One of the most critical things that we can do is keep track of the right metrics, because what happens is people will implement a new funnel in their business, and one of two things usually happens. And usually it doesn't work to start with, or just kind of limps along. And people tweak it a little bit. You know, if you're a successful entrepreneur, which you probably are, you've learned how to tweak it a little bit, and then you just let it go. And what happens is it's like a machine. It's kind of like you turn one gear and that turns the next gear and that turns the next gear, but it's like we're missing teeth from the gear. So you turn a gear and 3/4 of the way around it doesn't do anything, and 1/4 of the way it turns the next gear a little bit. If we can get all the teeth in the gear, then we're going to get a lot more out of that same machine. And so what we want to make sure we're doing is looking at the right metrics. And surprisingly, these are hard to figure out what they are sometimes. I mean, for years, I researched these and I looked through, I researched numerous websites. I talked to experts, you know, what should I be looking at? What are the most important things in this type of online business? And what I got has varied a lot, but it's also had certain things in common. And then what I did is I used what I learned and I tried it again and again, and then I refined it over time. And really what I like to do is think of it as a big black box. And we put something in, usually something like advertising dollars, or maybe effort of salespeople, something like that. We put something in, and then something comes out. And what comes out is ideally a customer, so they have a dollar value, and also we might get leads out of it. So we have our black box that has a purpose, and that purpose can be revenue generating or it can be lead generating, and it can also be both. So the first thing we want to look at is, what are we putting into it dollar-wise, and sometimes it's time-wise? What are we putting into our black box? And then we want to look at, well, in the end, what are we getting out? So for a typical funnel, that means how many ad dollars are we putting in over a specific period of time? And that period of time can be a single ad campaign, whether that's a day, a week, a month, or it can be a period of time, a week, a month, 6 months, a year, some period of time that we're looking at the data for. So, and very often, just pick one. If you're not sure, just pick one. Don't make it forever, though. Just pick a finite period of time that you've been doing a certain kind of ad, and how many advertising dollars did we put in? And then if we look at those customers who came from that advertising source as new customers, and this is really important, not just people who saw that ad, but people who came as new customers. How much did we sell to them overall? What was their total value? So if I put $10,000 in ads in over a certain period of time for a certain certain ad campaign, how much did I get out of that? Was it $5,000? Was it $20,000? What was it? And this might sound really straightforward, and it's pretty simple to do usually, but so often we get overwhelmed and distracted, and we miss this the simplest thing. What goes in and what comes out. So that's that's our overall in-out metric that we want to look at. Now let's say we've got those. Now we want to drill down and open up that black box a little bit and see what's inside it. And what we want to do is first, before we start looking at stats or metrics, grab a clean sheet of paper. And what I like to do is draw a kind of flow chart diagram of what are the major steps in my funnel. And a typical opt-in funnel might be, okay, I drive traffic from an ad, and I'll write ads, put a circle around it, and then an arrow going to the next circle, and that next circle, or bubble as I call them sometimes, that next one will say opt-in page. And then I'll draw a line to the next circle, and the next circle might be thank you page upsell. And then from that opt-in page, I'll also draw a line to another circle that says email promo number 1, etc. And so I'll draw a circle and limit it to like no more than like 6 of them initially. And yeah, you can drill down more, but we don't want to do that yet. We just want to have the big picture. So we might have, in that example, we've got ads, we've got opt-in page, we've got email list, and we've got campaign number 1. And we have a thank you page upsell. And so what I'll do is then I'll look at that first number. How many people went to the opt-in page? And I'll rate that number. And the first one's a number because we don't have a percentage usually. And I'll start with that. You may also start with something like number of ad views or number of clicks. But I encourage you to keep it really simple. I usually like to know just how many people went to the opt-in page. And then coming out of that, I've got an arrow. And I'll say, well, how many people opted in? 100 people went to the opt-in page. How many people opted in? And I'll write that number down, figure out a percentage. Okay, it was 22% or 20%, let's say, opted in. And then I'll do the same thing with each bubble. What percentage of that first total of that 100 people got to each stage? So we're doing the percentage of the total that came in the front end of our funnel, not what percentage of the previous step. So obviously we'll get decreasing percentages, but as we look at it, what will typically happen in a funnel that's working well is we'll see decreases in the percentages that seem logical. However, in a funnel that's broken, we'll see something like we had 100 people go to the opt-in page, but only 2% of them opted in. And as soon as we see something like that, it's like, all right, I found the broken gear in my machine. I found the gear that's missing the teeth. There's something wrong between my ad and my opt-in page. And once we figure out what step has the problem, what step is broken, there are very specific items that we look at. So if I got 100 people going to an opt-in page and then only 2% are opting in, well, that means some very specific things. Either my ad disagrees with the opt-in page. Maybe the opt-in page has a broken opt-in form, something like that. Maybe people can't find the opt-in form, but there's probably a problem on my opt-in page. And so it's really easy to identify. I can change things, see if I can get that number to go up. Sometimes it's further down the funnel. Let's say I have a webinar funnel, and I get to the webinar and I discover, I get 100 people to opt in, or 100 people go to my opt-in page, and out of that, 60 of them, 60% opt in, and then out of that, 30% show up at my webinar, and those numbers are all pretty good. And then out of that 20% that show up at my webinar, 1% buys. Well, I've probably got a problem with my webinar, and then I can drill into my webinar and find out what's happening. Is it a problem with the technology? It's not streaming right. Are people just dropping off at the beginning because it's too long, too boring? Are people not interested in the topic? Or is it that my checkout page doesn't work? But I know where to look, and then I can drill down on that one area. Okay, so that's really the deal with metrics for a funnel. First, figure out your black box, what goes in, what you expect to come out. Then draw your bubble diagram with your circles on it. Identify the major stages, no more than 6. Write down for the first one how many people go in over a certain finite period of time, and then figure out your percentages for each step. Look it over, compare it with other campaigns that are similar or industry standards, and see if any of them are dropping off or disproportionately low. If they are, then that's where your problem lies, and that's a prime low-hanging fruit for just making more money. That's money you're leaving on the table. And if you find one that's working particularly well, for example, you find an opt-in page and you're getting 80% opt-ins from it. Wow, you've got an amazing combination of ad and opt-in page. Use those as models for other campaigns. So either way, it'll help you bring more money in, optimize your sales process, and hopefully be less stressed. All right, that's today's strategy. Thanks for watching. I'm Al Lipper, and if you found this helpful, I would be grateful if you'd pass it along to other folks who you think might find it helpful as well. As always, all my best to you and your family. Thanks. Okay, so nothing to do with business. I'm just looking at this really amazing sunset here. I'll flip the camera around so you all can see it. Wow, look at that sunset. That is just magnificent. Thank you for being here to share this with me. It makes it all the better. Okay, all my best to you and your family for a magnificent day.